Cinematic Sarcastic, a podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. Welcome back, everyone. We are in 2023. This is our first episode of the new year. I have to say, just before we jump into it, I feel like 2023 already has this vibe that I am not digging so far. How about all of you? How is your 2023 starting off? So before we jump into the film that we are going to talk about today, I did want to talk a little bit about a topic that I posted on my Instagram stories, and that is the accident that Jeremy Renner sustained right after the new year. I think that the report is that his snowcat actually appeared to have run him over or rolled over him in some manner, and he did sustain some pretty serious critical injuries. I know that he is stable, but so far from just some of the updates that they're putting out, it looks like there is some potential for a very long recovery road. So as movie nerds, as a movie nerd family, if we all can just send some good energy his way, send out prayers if that is something that you do. So far, gosh, it just seems like this is what I'm saying. The vibe, right, is not starting out the greatest, but if we can just send out some good energy, right? I'm like, we can turn this bus around. we can try and make this a good year. I know it's been pretty tough on people for the last couple of years, so I'm hoping, I don't want to do like toxic positivity, but I'm just hoping this year can bring some really great things. That's my mentality, right? I really want some good things. Obviously, it's not going to be great all the time, but I would like, I want to start off on some better notes than these. And that brings me full circle right around to the movie that we are going to talk about. I tried to find something else that was new that I could cover as my first episode, because I watched this film and I was like, oh gosh, I don't want to start off the first podcast episode not liking something. But the other television show that I picked to watch, I also was not the biggest fan of. So I was like, gosh dang it, we're just gonna start it on that note. So the movie that I am talking about is A Man Called Otto. This is a new film starring Tom Hanks that recently came out. And I have to say, I am not a fan. I am not a fan of this movie. This film is classified as a comedy, and I do not find it to be comical in any way. Like, there are some moments that might be a little bit funny, like somebody will say something and I'm like, that's humorous in some way. But overall, I would never have classified this movie as a comedy. Drama, I can say yes, but comedy, no. I don't find a lot of the topics that go on in this film to be something that I would classify as a comedy. So that being said, before we jump into actually talking about A Man Called Otto, I do want to just kind of give a disclaimer or a little heads up that there are some topics in A Man Called Otto that could be triggering or upsetting to some people. So, just be warned that if at any point something strikes you as not okay, please just turn this episode off. I have many, many other episodes that you can listen to that don't cover these types of topics. So to get into A Man Called Otto, this is a book that I was not at all familiar with. I think that this one has been adapted into film a couple of times. A Man Called Otto with Tom Hanks, I think, is like the US or American version of. And then there was another adaptation that was done also in Sweden, I believe. So I am not familiar at all with the book, and I just want to put that out there. But I would find it very interesting, I think, to read the book, because there are so many elements to this that are incredibly contradicting in my mind, like from my personal perspective. So the story revolves around Tom Hanks, who I think you are meant to believe is just some curmudgeon-y old man, that get off my lawn, you darn kids kind of curmudgeon-y old man who just kind of finds a reason to be angry about everything. And then throughout the course of the movie, he's supposed to learn these life lessons and learn to be more positive and, yada, yada, that sort of thing. What I don't like about this film is that, for one, just as a general aside, for one, a lot of the things that like Tom Hanks's character of Otto gets irritated by or upset by, I'm like, no, yeah, everyone would find that irritating. And a lot of people would probably react to that a lot worse than he does. Like, there are some things, obviously that are pretty small things, getting charged like 33 extra cents for a foot of rope that he doesn't want, like just little things where you're like, gosh, is it that critical? But a lot of the stuff that he gets annoyed over are like, for instance, there's this real estate guy in the movie that I think is meant to just kind of be the bad guy, which you don't really see him that much. So it's not very clear, but there's this real estate guy that's trying to buy up properties, right? I think to use as rental homes. I'm not sure, but it's like a gated community. It's a gated community that I am not. I don't know. A lot of the themes here, it's like some of this, I feel like maybe the book was a bit dated. Like the book might have been pre the internet. And then the movie was trying to have some of those themes and then some themes that obviously are more modern, and it kind of clashes in a weird way. But the gated community where Otto lives are like these little town home, like row home type things. And it's just sort of like a manual gate, right? So all of the residents would have to drive up to the gate, get out of their car, open the gate, drive through, get out of your car, close the gate, like that sort of thing. It's not automated. And it also this gate only covers the road portion that you like drive in and drive out through. It doesn't like actually go around the entire community. So what this real estate agent is doing is, because he's pompous would be my guess, and lazy, he doesn't want to get out of his car in order to open the gate. So he is driving up on the sidewalk and over the grass to get to the main road. And it's done in such a way that you're supposed to think that like Tom Hanks is being this irrational, just mean, horrible old man. And I'm like, nah, I'd be pissed about that. Like if I live in a community and there is like an HOA, I believe that he's part of. If you live in a community that cares enough to like have an HOA and all of that stuff, no one is going to want to watch someone drive over the sidewalk in order to get in and out. Like that's something that I would be pissed about. That's not irrational anger, and a lot of the things that kind of come up, I'm like, again, not irrational anger. But pretty early, almost right away in this movie, you see that Otto has come to a place in life where, you kind of get this hint really early on that his wife has passed and that he is in a state of mind where he is thinking about unaliving himself, and he is ready to follow through on that plan. And there are a couple of times when he attempts to actually do that. And here is one of the things where I'm like, I kind of am just very interested in reading the book, because the way that it is done in the film, I'm like, you don't understand depression in any way, shape, or form if you're trying to tell me this is how a person in that state of mind is going to behave. So when Otto has decided, this is the day I am going to unalive myself on this day, he calls up and he cancels his phone. He turns off his power. He goes through the motions of basically shutting down his entire life in order to unalive himself. And then as he is about to do this thing, he sees these new neighbors, moving in, and they cannot parallel park. And this frustrates him enough to the point where he's like, I have to stop what I'm doing and go out there and be angry old man at them. And this happens time and time and time again in this movie. Every time he makes this attempt, something irritates him or somebody bothers him in a way that makes him stop what he's doing and, help them or go be irritated at them. And I'm like, that's not if you have reached the point, and I have had, several people in my life, family, friends who have actually succeeded in unaliving themselves. They get to this space that really they don't even kind of notice, I feel like, what's going on around them. That thought is so solid that's kind of why they succeed, right? It is the thought in their mind is so solid that it just, that is what they've decided. And for him, on one point, it seems like he is very solid in this thought process. And then it immediately the movie will contradict itself and say, no, he must not be decided because there's this tiny little thing that's stopping him from doing it. And I just feel like for me that entire thought process, that entire sort of theme throughout the movie either was done just tremendously horribly, or maybe should have just been cut from the movie entirely, because the movie, I think, would have stayed the same just in the overall lessons and things that he learns without that even being part of it. They could have gone the depression route without having to bring the unaliving portion into it. And I'm sure that that's in the book, but I feel like in the book, I'm almost positive it was written in a different way. I would be pretty surprised actually if it was not, and if it was as similar, because to me, that would be someone who doesn't understand kind of that at all to write it or put it out in that kind of way. And you'd have to maybe watch the movie to understand completely what I'm talking about. But the majority of the time, and then here's the thing that irritates me, right, is that you get these flashbacks of his life. Obviously, he loved his wife very much, and he is in this depression state because of that. And you have these people around him who really are just sort of irritating him into continuing his days. But at the very end of the film, and this will be probably a spoiler, but when he's kind of learning to be a better person, let's say, he makes this statement that bothered me quite a bit. And he says, I was so consumed with myself and my own pain that I didn't notice that there were people around me that were also struggling and who were also thinking about me. And something about that just rubbed me the wrong way, because the whole entire movie to me sort of felt like it was trying to give this toxic positivity narrative that if you're just happy, you're fine. And if you're just happy, everyone around you is going to like you. And that you shouldn't be depressed or you shouldn't be struggling, and that your struggles at the end of the day really don't matter because everyone has them. And yes, I agree with that in some part, yes, everyone is struggling. I think that is a thing, right? That you should never judge someone else because you don't know what they're going through. And I think that is accurate. I agree with that sort of sentiment. And that being said, I find it kind of, I don't think insulting is the right word, but I find it just not a cool way to go about kind of putting it out there that you should minimize your pain or you should not be validated, that people shouldn't sort of stop to see if you're okay because they are also going through things, and I think that's where like having friends and having a good support system, whether that be family or, family that you make or what have you, becomes so important because everyone has those days. And I think a lot of us, especially in the last couple of years, certainly can relate to, really being in a state of depression for a while or really struggling for a while. And I don't think that telling yourself, oh, I shouldn't think about my pain because everyone has pain that's kind of, I feel like, what leads people to unaliving themselves is that thought process of, nobody thinks that I matter or my pain doesn't matter and I am a burden to other people. And I think that is a really like not great message to send out into the world. And again, like I'm saying, I don't know if it's just that the film adaptation is not a great one or that there just wasn't a ton of thought process around like maybe how to say, we should be kind of lifting each other up and helping each other out, because I think that is definitely something that people should try to do. But this narrative of like, get over your pain or don't unalive yourself because other people are struggling too, that's almost like telling someone, oh, you're depressed, just think happy thoughts. That's not how it works. It's kind of like, I don't know. And then like through this whole movie, it's like everyone is asking him for things, but no one ever asks him how he is. And even when he tells someone, this was my thought process, this was what I was going to do, no one ever stops and goes, gosh, I didn't even think that you were going through something. Like everyone's just kind of like, thanks for sharing. And then, maybe be nicer. Something about this movie just in general. I think Tom Hanks did a great job, acting through it. Being a curmudgeon-y old man, I think he did a great job. But just the overall way that the movie is done, and no offense to any of the other actors, but there is only one neighbor of his, and I can't even remember her name, honestly, I don't even remember her name in context of who she was, but there was one neighbor who was helping her husband who was suffering with something, and then she also has Parkinson's disease. She was the only neighbor I actually liked. Every other character I found just wildly annoying for various reasons. And it's just I don't know. I feel like they were exaggerated, almost like stereotypes of a character instead of acting or behaving in a way that normal people would. So for me, A Man Called Otto was not a win. It's not something that I thought was great. I think the underlying theme, maybe was great or decent, everyone is struggling, so try and support each other. But I just think the execution was not good. So those are my thoughts on A Man Called Otto. I would love to know your thoughts if you've seen the film. Subscribe if you want to join the movie nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.